and welcome back to the Shadow of the Apple podcast. And we are back with another amazing episode today here at the Shadow of the Apple podcast. And you might be asking, why am I so happy today? And I think my great friend Ryan could answer that for me.
Yeah, the Mets finally decided it's time to start winning some baseball games, and it had to come at the expense of the New York Yankees, of course.
Yeah, so the Mets go 5-1 on the homestands, and they finish it off with a crazy game against the New York Yankees. And we could get and let's definitely start from the beginning because there has been a lot to talk about just in this series alone. Like for one, the train stopped working, so people couldn't even get to Citi Field normally. Um, so that's something that was interesting after the first game. So we'll go game by game, and I mean the first game is pretty self-explanatory. Cam Schlittler was really pretty damn good.
hmm
Nothing to really say about that. He's going to be pretty good, I think, for a bit. I think he is pretty MLB ready. Only really giving up the homer to Soto, and it was a really good game from Schlittler.
Yeah, just continuing what he's been doing since he came up last year, and he has the lowest ERA by a starter in baseball and the second lowest ERA by a starter since his debut. So, I mean, he's just been amazing. That's really all there is to say. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's our ace right now because everybody's either hurt or underperforming. Well, Rodon will be the underperforming one, but I still think Schlittler is a better starter than him at the moment anyway.
Yeah, and it was a tough pill to swallow because Clay Holmes ended up getting injured in the game, which really sucks. Another
Yeah.
injured Met. It really hurts to see, and it really it shows just how many injury issues the Mets are having. Um, and they're up where the Astros with how bad their injured list is. But the Mets fought on, and the New York Yankees got to meet the Mets on Saturday and Sunday. And let's get straight into it. So on Sunday, you had Huascar Brasimon starting the game, and then David Peterson going in. They haven't been starting Peterson from the get more because I think Peterson has struggled from the first two innings, so he's kind of had someone come in, and then have Peterson pitch around 3 to 4 innings. So the Mets were definitely the big takeaway from that game was Luke Weaver coming in with the bases loaded and getting 2 strikeouts, a strikeout from against Austin Wells, and then getting Anthony Volpe to ground out and keep the Mets intact.
Yeah, he looked a lot like the way he looked in 2024 with the Yankees. So, I mean, for Mets
Yeah,
fans, that's a good thing.
yeah, that definitely was one of the better Luke Weaver performances. Yeah, he was a little, I'd say shaky to start off the 2026 season with the New York Mets, but he looked
hmm
really good there. Um, but it was a pretty close game from really for the most part. I'd say Saturday was probably in my opinion the tightest game out of the three. Because Saturday to today was something special, and that's going to be definitely the meat of our episode. Um, but I'd say Saturday was probably the tightest game from both sides. My sister, who is the only Yankee fan in our family, which is why she is not with us anymore. I'm just kidding, but um, she was at the game. They lost. Um, yeah, yeah, but I say out of all the 3 games, that was probably the most interesting game. Carson Bench dropped the pop fly. There was that. I mean, there was a whole lot of stuff going on in the game. Soto was batting 400 in the series against the Yankees. I mean, I want if Ryan, is there anything you want to say about Saturday's game really? Because it was a pretty tight game with Rodon and Peterson kind of having decent outings, but ultimately
Yeah,
resulting in that's having the better end of the stick.
yeah. There's not much really to talk on there. Like you said, today's game was definitely the most exciting or crazy game. I guess would be the way to put it, back and forth. But game 2, the only thing I really want to mention is the Carlos
Oh,
Rodon wild pitch.
Yes, yes.
That
How
was
could I forget
crazy.
that? Yeah, and
I don't
and
know.
mhm.
I don't know how the where the ball hit to get. It was like he basically threw a pop up to himself. Essentially, that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I completely forgot to mention that. I mean, that's how the Mets actually took the lead because it was a 1-0 game. It was 1-0 Yankees before the wild pitch because it was a wild pitch and he basically threw it to nobody. Um, and that's what ended up the Mets getting 2 runs, not without even getting a single hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the craziest part about that was just the way the ball ricocheted off the wall. I mean, he overthrew the catcher, and then it just somehow bounced off the wall and it was a straight pop up, and he ended up catching it foul territory on the first base side. So, I mean, if you haven't seen that, it's definitely an interesting clip to look at. But
And what definitely I think set the game apart. What really got the Mets the strong lead was the double by Mark Vientos, which was able to get Bench and it was able to get Juan Soto to the home plate, and it was able to give the Mets a pretty strong lead. The Yankees would scrap another run, but ended up with Devin Williams getting the save. And I mean, another familiar face. I mean,
yeah,
isn't it insane? So the that was Saturday's game. The Mets close it out. They get a solid win. And I'm thinking, honestly, as a Met fan, I'm thinking at least we didn't get swept. Because I think the reason why I'm honestly very happy is because I honestly didn't think we were going to win this series. I didn't. So, and we'll get into game 3, which was today. What I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Freddie Peralta wasn't necessarily horrible, but he was walking a lot of batters. I'm gonna pull up the full stats pretty soon, but he was not bad per se, but the walks were definitely a little concerning. If obviously I'm a fan of the Mets, um, and it resulted in the two runs after it being a 1-1 game, and then Sean Manaea walking in another batter, which is another topic amongst Mets fans, which we might get into depending on where we go from here, because it's just really unfortunate to see how much he's regressed. Really, since the injury, he has kind of lost his velocity. He couldn't control his third pitch. So it's definitely sad to see him you're starting to noticeably see his dip in quality um, from 2024. So is there anything you could say about Sean Manaea? I mean, I'm
yeah. I
not.
mean, I don't
Mhm,
watch him as much as you do, so there's not much I can say about him.
mhm.
I mean, yeah, he was taken out of a starting position at some point this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's back to that. I don't know how he's done since, but I'm pretty sure he's been like okay, a solid starter because of the injuries.
Well, like I said, he lost his velocity.
Hmm.
He lost his third pitch and he lost his
Yeah, yeah,
speed. So he's lost a lot of his main features that what made him the pitcher he was in 2024. So it really it sucks to see him just kind of like not be able to come back from the injury because
yeah.
really since the injury in 2020 from in early 2025 in spring training, he just hasn't been that same guy. But yeah, if we go back to Peralta, he pitched five innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 runs, three hits, 3 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. But the walks were a huge problem. I think he had 6 walks on the day. Correct
Hmm.
me if I'm wrong. And his ERA is back to 3.31. So other than that, Peralta did his job. Um, if the Mets, if the Mets do continue to struggle, besides this homestand, and they go back to their certain ways, they most likely will trade him. He could be a target for the New York Yankees.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we have a lot of starting depth coming back, but could be, yeah. Back to Mania for 1 second. I just want to mention something.
mhm.
So he's got to be more of a crafty pitcher now because, like you said, he lost his velocity and his third pitch. So he's got to be a little bit more crafty, more trying to like paint rather than like just
He's
being
got yeah,
a power pitcher. That reminds me a lot of Carlos Rodon from a few years ago. He was hurt in 2023 when the Yankees first signed him his first year. He began on the injured list, and by the time he came back, he was kind of like that too a little bit. I mean, he had a lost velocity. He wasn't the same pitcher he was with Chicago and San Francisco. So he has become more of a crafty pitcher, and you've seen that since he signed with the Yankees. Every year he's gotten a little better, learning how to become that kind of pitcher.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of pitchers, when they do get older, they do have to deal with that. A
Yeah,
good example of that is one of my personal favorite Mets, big, sexy Bartolo Colon. He was never necessarily a power thrower. He was never throwing 99, 100 on the dot, but he was getting the ground balls. He was getting people to get out. He was hitting the chalk. He was hitting the zone. He was getting the job done. So if Mania can figure it out, he can figure it out. I mean, in 2024, he switched up his pitching motion kind of to how Chris Sale kind of was doing his sidearm and kind of stretching out when throwing his pitch. And that's why a big reason Sean Manaea had the season he did, because he switched his pitching motion to a similar left-handed pitcher who obviously Chris Sale, Chris Sale is a great pitcher. So when he plays. So yeah, so that was definitely a big issue. The Bo Bichette pop-up, missing the pop-up, which resulted in the Yankees 2 runs. So that's something that we definitely got to talk about. Bo Bichette, he did get the hit. You got to give him credit. He got the hit. He kept the inning alive in the 9th inning to keep the Mets alive. But he hasn't lived up to the contract. He's getting paid more than Aaron Judge annually this year. And obviously he's no Aaron Judge.
yeah, that's crazy to think about, but I mean, it makes sense when you look at the contract the way it's structured. But we went over that in the past. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's crazy. Just think about just right there, just that line is crazy.
they're paying Bo Bichette and Sean Manaea $67 million total. So it's unfortunate. Sean Manaea, unfortunately, I think it's more on injuries. Unfortunately with him, but with Bichette, it's just he hasn't lived up to the contract so far. He's batting, I think, 218. I saw his stat line; it wasn't good. So, but let's get into the nitty gritty. So, obviously, we'll play it out. David Bednar, who had 10 saves going into this game, I think the third most saves in the National League or the American League. Correct me, American League, third most saves in the American League. And he gave up a hanging pitch to retired number, the GOAT, Tyrone Taylor. And only people who will understand that joke, maybe only a few people, maybe not even watching the stream, maybe only one person, and you know this person very well, Ryan, will understand this joke about how great Tyrone Taylor is. And I was, so to put in perspective, Ryan, I was actually coming back from my job and I was listening to the 9th inning on the radio, and I was practicing driving actually while I was listening to the game. So I was in the parking lot of Walgreens in the 9th inning, and the way Howie Rose called the home run, he didn't say it. He was just it's the way he described it. There's only one way I can really, if I find the clip, we'll watch it. But he described it. He had you on the edge of your seat, like you were just waiting and waiting and waiting. And he was describing it. He was like, the ball was going, it was going. If it's fair, it's good. If it's fair, it hits the line, and then it's a fair ball. But the moment I heard the fair ball, it was just this special kind of euphoria when Tyrone Taylor hit that ball, and not because it's a meaning it's like Game 7 of the World Series or nothing, but just out of all people to hit a home run in that scenario, it was Tyrone Taylor.
Yeah,
I
not taking
constantly make fun of and talk and glaze, and not in a sarcastic way.
not taking anything away from him at all. He's a major league player, but I mean, if me and you were up there, we probably also would have hit that pitch a very far distance. I mean, that was one of the worst meatballs, just right down the middle I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Yo, how you doing, Brad? How we doing? So, I mean, obviously my friend here is not doing well. I'm doing great. So, I'm gonna find. I want to find the radio call because the radio call did a great job of just describing how close the ball was because he kind of just got it fair. Like it just kind of reached that fair ball line and it tied the game. And I think from then on the momentum was just there for the Mets, and then obviously the game ended the way it did, and honestly the most Mets way ever. Like it kind of almost felt like the team switched roles, uh, and just how they play. Uh, the Mets obviously lose the way they do. It was a very Metsy way for the Yankees to lose, with two of their infielders bumping into each other and getting the game-winning run.
Yeah, I mean that back to the home run just real quick. That pitch call, I don't know who made the call, but in that situation, I don't know why we're trying to just like I don't know why we're trying to be fancy there. Like we said, like this isn't Juan Soto up anymore. You already dealt with him. You're trying to just there's two outs. You're trying to just the worst case scenario if you just throw a fastball
Yeah,
is he probably, if anything, gets a base hit and scores a run. Then you worry about the next one. It's just I just don't understand that pitch call there. I just feel like with probably the weakest hitter in their lineup, you should be attacking him with two outs in the ninth inning.
well, I mean, he kind of did. He threw a ball down the middle.
Yeah, but I mean like with fastballs, like not that was a hanging curve. I don't know why we're throwing that to Tyrone Taylor with two outs in
Well,
the ninth inning.
Tyrone Taylor has his number is going to have his number retired in the rafters very soon. He's going to have his number 15 retired very soon. So there's a reason why Tyrone Taylor has his retired number by the Mets and is still playing.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I mean that's a fair argument. Yeah, can't argue that.
I'm going to see if you can hear the clip. I'm going to play it
Mhm.
right now.
And also fly to left. First pitch, breaking ball hit deep to left field. It's down the line. It's hooking. It is a home run! Tie game! Tie game! Tyrone Taylor tucks it just inside the foul pole.
So you see what I'm trying to say? Like he described it like it was just fair, and I think that's what was exciting about it. The call was perfect. He described it so well because the ball was just fair. And like when you watch it on TV, it's a little more closer to the fair ball zone. But he literally described it like it was just hanging. So great call by the one and only Howie Rose. And the Mets were able to get the series win, which I mean honestly, I think this could really be a game changing game. And I don't even know what I'm saying because I'm just so happy about the win. But it's a
Season
momentum
changing.
because of not because of this because of the circumstances. Think about it. The Mets are and they're losing this game. They're going to go 4-2 in the homestand. They're going to be 8 games under 500, right? And we're nearing the end of May. Now you're 6 games. You're playing teams that you could beat. You're going to be you keep winning these series. Hell, you could even sweep a series between one of these two teams. I dare even say it. Then the Mets could be very close to 500, and they could have their season back on track. So that's why I feel like this game is I feel like it'd be a very momentum changing game for the Mets season. I really feel
That's
like
kind of
this game could really give the Mets some juice.
yeah, and that's kind of like what I've been saying, like every episode so far. Like I feel like with the Mets, the way their season's gone, there's a lot to talk about with that. But I've been saying, if they can get to 500 by beginning of summer, by the All Star break, even, then they have a good shot of making it of sneaking to a wild card spot. So I mean, yeah, like you said, getting closer to being 500 right now is a good sign. And I don't know what the schedule looks like, but maybe there's some weaker teams coming up that they can possibly sweep.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that for sure. But I mean, also I want to add that the Mets have had 7 comebacks in May alone. So they and obviously that included with Tyrone Taylor's homer, which I also want to add is his 5th homer in 13 games against the Yankees. So in half the games he's played against the Yankees recently, he's hit a homer.
That doesn't make sense, but
Fifth
that's
homer
baseball.
in 13 games. And with and I talked about a little bit about the Detroit series, that they showed life. They came back. They could have just backed down, and they didn't. This is now another game. Well, they were down, and they were down Saturday too. This was more of a clutch comeback, but to show that this team is not going to back down, even with how weak the lineup looks at times, with all the injuries, with everything that is going down on the Mets. The fact that they still were able to come back against a Yankees team who is more than a few games over 500, only a few games back of their division, which we'll get into, which I didn't honestly even know that they were behind their division now. But a Yankees team who has had a good season overall, when you look at it, just not even as a Yankee fan, but as a baseball fan, they've objectively had a good season. So when you win a series against a team who is objectively better than you, which the Yankees are, let's face it, the Yankees are objectively a better team than the Mets this year. It shows a lot of hope. It gives me hope, and it gives me positivity that the Mets could potentially get back into the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, obviously it's possible. Who knows? They could win the rest of the series for the rest of the year. They're not going to, but it could happen. Yeah, I don't. Like I've been saying, I don't think you can count out the Mets yet. They weren't playing well. They had injuries. So even as time goes on, we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, it is definitely, you get a lot of momentum. I mean, even if you break it down and look at the records of the two teams, it's impressive for a team with the Mets record to beat a team with the Yankees record at this point in the season, in a 3-game series. But then you also add in the fact that it is Mets Yankees, it is Subway Series, so that also adds more, juice for the Mets.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's funny when I think about it, because like the Mets, as bad as they've been, they still found a way to win a series against the Yankees, which is hilarious to me, because the Yankees, there was a time, it was in 2013, the Mets were really bad. They had a really bad season, and they swept the Yankees that year. I think in all 6 games. I think it was a 6-game year, because there was a time, there used to be what I really liked what they used to do back then. They did it for maybe 2 or 3 years. When they wouldn't play, so obviously now you play every team, but when they wouldn't, what they would do when they aren't playing the AL East, what they would do is they would play a 4-game series straight, but they would do 2 games at Citi Field and then 2 games at Yankee Stadium. So you could do like what my dad did, for example. He went to 1 game on Tuesday at Citi Field, and then went to the game on Wednesday at Yankee Stadium. You do hit them back to back. Back in the day, they also used to do Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium doubleheaders, which I think is also really cool. I would imagine if they did that in today's game. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think both of those ideas, they should. I mean, I don't know how it would work with the modern schedule, the way things go, but I would love to see one of those 2 formats come back, because it does add more to it.
Yeah, true. And you could hit both stadiums, and you can get both experiences back to back. And speaking of this series at Citi Field, the Mets, I said it before in the beginning, the Mets have had a really good record against the Yankees, not only since 2019. I believe they were 22-15 against the Yankees since 2019. But they've also had a really good home record against Citi Field. The Yankees have definitely won their series against the Mets at Yankee Stadium, but the Mets have had their number at Yankee Stadium, and I'm going to look at this stat. This was the last time the Yankees won a series at Citi Field. It was June 2018. So let me put this in perspective. Avengers Infinity War was still in theaters. Succession had aired 1 episode. Nice for What was the #1 song. And Aaron Judge was the reigning Rookie of the Year. And their lineup was Aaron Hicks, Judge, Stanton, Gary Sanchez, Andujar, Didi Gorgeous, Greg Bird, Taylor Austin, and Domingo Germán was the pitcher.
That's a long time ago.
It certainly was.
That's the baby bombers right there.
Yeah, man, that was certainly a time. So, but it shows just the Mets have definitely they've had their number, and they've had a lot of clutch wins. There was a great game last year where Jeff McNeil hit a 2-run homer to take the lead. And I'm 99% sure it was off of Luke Weaver.
It was off Luke Weaver, yeah.
Yeah. So, the Mets have definitely had the upper hand against the Yankees at Citi Field, and I said as a stat line. I'm not sure what the specific record. I think it was like 18-12 or something, or like 8-2. It was something like that. If you want to fact check me, Ryan, I'd appreciate it. Like the Mets record against the Yankees at Citi Field since like 2021, because I think they've had a pretty good number against the Yankees at Citi Field, but I couldn't tell you. Obviously, last time they won a series against the Mets at Citi Field was almost 8 years ago. So, but yeah, they get a big series win against the Yankees, and something I actually want to really discuss, because I was thinking about it before this episode. I was like, and the question is, do you think this series says more about the Yankees or more about the Mets? Because on one hand, you have the Yankees. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'll let you speak.
Yeah,
but
you're good.
but you have the Yankees on one hand, who have been struggling recently. They lose a series to the Orioles. They get swept by Milwaukee, and now they lose a series to the Mets. So, but also does it say something about the Mets, that their season is back on track? You know, they got AJ Ewing back up, kind of giving them that juice, giving them that life, a boost into the lineup, and they're coming up with these clutch wins. So, what do you think?
Yeah, well, first, it looks like the Mets are 9-6 against the Yankees at Citi Field since this 2021 season. And yeah, it's I think it has a lot about both teams, to be honest. I think it shows the Mets have life. They're starting to come to form. They can win games. But I think it shows a lot about the Yankees too. Like, it's basically what I've been saying. The offense is going to score you runs most of the time. And when they don't, the starting pitching is going to carry until it gets to the bullpen. That's where the issue is. We knew that was the issue last October. It's still an issue. David Bednar, I mean, not much to say. I mean, he's been solid. He's been okay. He hasn't been as good as he was last year for us. But obviously today he blew the game. But yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about both teams. It just shows where the weaknesses and where the strengths are for those two teams going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think I really only think the starting pitching really carried the Yankees the one game in this series.
Yeah, but I mean, the offense carried them today. Like I was saying, if the offense doesn't, the starting pitching will carry you. Today it was the offense. They were up. They were up 6-1 or 5-1 at some point. It was a 5-1, right?
Yeah.
5-1 and then 6-3. I mean, those were two substantial leads that the bullpen blew.
Really more David Bednar.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally just needed to not give up a home run, and he gave up a home run.
Yeah, but I mean, even a 5-1 lead, the Mets came back. It was 5-3. Then the Yankees scored insurance on Volpe's base-loaded walk, which I want to talk about him a little bit later. But I honestly forget who that was who gave it up. Who gave the 2 runs that the Mets scored?
It was Peralta. Or no, it wasn't. He came out. It was Peralta. It was earned runs. It was his earned runs, but he didn't give up the run. He didn't give up the hit. I was listening to the radio and I was practicing driving, so I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
So
someone came out of I wasn't watching.
It might have been Manaea, honestly.
I just did my research on
I think it was Manaea. Because only three people pitched for the Mets today.
Yeah, and then like I was saying for the Yankees, before Bednar, they had the lead that was going a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out who it was who gave up the 2 runs for the Yankees. It was Ryan Yarbrough came out of the bullpen. That's right, and he let up 2 runs, which gave the Yankees shortened their lead from 5-1 to 5-3. So, yeah, I mean the bullpen is an issue. It's a weakness. I wouldn't be I feel like the way the Yankees are moving this year, they see it as that kind of have to win now, especially with the lockout and players getting older, contracts expiring. I wouldn't think it's a terrible idea to make a trade within the next month for a pretty solid bullpen arm if that's possible, because you can't just keep throwing guys out there like Paul Blackburn, Ryan Yarbrough, who are just projects. You have to have more for sure names to come out.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. Something I honestly have really noticed um, is the amount of walk-offs the Mets have hit against the Yankees in this decade. Um, they hit so obviously they hit a walk-off today, but they also hit a walk-off in 2023. Like, Brandon Nimmo, starring Marte, hit a walk-off. And then obviously in 2020 there was the Pete Alonso walk-off on the day Tom Seaver passed away, and something that we didn't mention that actually you mentioned in text afterwards, the Ahmed Rosario home walk-off at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
So the Mets they've had pretty memorable wins against the Yankees, I feel like, especially at Citi Field. I always feel like, and I said it before, I feel like the Subway Series just has, honestly, better games at Citi Field. I don't know why. The games are just tighter, and they're more intense, but the games just are tighter, and they've had closer games at Citi Field.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the games are more like exciting at Citi Field. They're closer. I always think back to the 2021 game. I think it was the 9/11 game with
Yeah, that was a great
with Stanton and Lindor going homer for homer. That was pretty fun until it ended.
Yeah, that was the day after 9/11, actually.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
won the 9/11 game. They won that game. I was at that game. They won 7-6.
All right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
Judge
but like I
hit
said,
two
but
homers that
that
day.
was a close game too. So like
Hmm.
they've played a lot of really, really good games, and for whatever reason they just all happen to be at Citi Field, which is why we got to go to a Subway Series game at Citi Field at some point. I really hope it works out at some point next year if we do have an MLB season.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if you're the Yankees, I think the biggest question is where do you go from here? Because you haven't played good baseball. Just to be point blank, you haven't played good baseball these last few series. You've lost 3
Yeah.
straight series now. You're, I believe, now 3 games behind the Rays, which is the biggest
Yeah. 3 games.
been in the division, I believe, this season now, right?
Yeah. Correct. They've
Mhm.
been a very streaky team. They started off hot, and they went on a rough stretch. They started winning games again. Now they're losing games again. Um, I I was thinking about it before, and I looked back at it. They just came off a 2-7 road trip. That's not. I would say that's not acceptable with this team and the teams that they played. I think that's pretty rough. I mean, they got swept by the Brewers. They could have taken at least one of those games. Um, Especially the game that Cam Schlittler started. That they should have had that one. Then they played at Baltimore. They only took one of those games. They had just swept the Orioles 4 games in the Bronx. I feel like you at least could have won that series. And then I feel like this series, I mean, they had the game today. They obviously ended up blowing it, but if Bednar throws one different pitch, then the Yankees could have walked away with the win. So that would have left you 2-3, 2-3, or winning 2 of 3, and then even if they just won one in Milwaukee, that would have been a much better result. So the whole road trip as it went was just disappointing. But looking forward, they have, I would say, their 2 biggest series of the year so far. Actually, yeah, no, for sure, the 2 biggest series coming up. They have 4 against the Blue Jays at home. Then right after that, they have 3 against the Rays at home. So they have to just go home, short memory, reset. Hopefully, they can start winning some more games. There's some tough pitching matchups, and of course, the Rays. You're 3 games behind them already. If it stays that way, I mean, you have to sweep them to just tie, be back in a tie in first place. So yeah, they have to just start playing better against the division now. The Blue Jays have Dylan Cease starting one of the games. They have Savage starting one of the games. Two great pitchers. So it's going to be tough.
And they haven't,
but
I mean, they're 21-25, so they haven't obviously lived up to the expectations.
yeah, the
That
Blue Jays have had a lot of injuries this year.
Mhm.
And the Rays have, I would say, on paper, I would say they are definitely overperforming. They're obviously a threat because they're in first place. I still don't look at them as the biggest long-term threat for the Yankees. I feel like come August, September, it's going to be the Blue Jays and the Yankees fighting for first place. But of course, as of now, the Rays are in first, so you can't take them lightly. So
The Rays are very unpredictable, in my opinion. They're a very unpredictable team.
The Rays remind me a lot of the Blue Jays from last year. They weren't supposed to be fighting for first place and be as good as they were. They had a lot of players who overperformed. Of course, the Blue Jays last year had bigger names and higher payroll, but yeah, it's still you can't ignore them, obviously. So hopefully the Yankees can reclaim first place by the end of these two series. And then after that, they play 3 at Kansas City too, who they also beat earlier this year at home. So yeah, I think that they have 2 tough series coming up, so it's going to be hard to bounce back right away. But I mean, the best thing for them right now is to face their tough division opponents and hopefully show that, prove to themselves. Because, after that rough road trip, it's got to be – the mood definitely isn't too great in the clubhouse. So they just got to prove to themselves and take some of these games.
For sure. Yeah, definitely got to get back on track. You're going to be back at home. These are pretty big series against your division rivals. The Yankees, for the most part, typically, in my opinion, I feel like they typically aren't the worst team against their division, I would say. They typically do pretty well, especially at home. I feel like I feel like they're a good team against their division at home.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to convey. I do think the Yankees will be good. I think they'll figure it out. I think they definitely are a streaky team. The more I'm definitely thinking about it, the way you put it. I think if there's any way you can get back on track, it's definitely to get back at home, be comfortable where you play. And for the Mets, and honestly, I think a big reason why I was talking about this game, how it really could get the Mets back over the edge. It really reminds me of honestly. 2 years ago in 2024 when they played in London, England. They were losing against the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Phillies were playing really, really well at the time, and they were expected to sweep the Mets. The Mets weren't playing well, and they were able to stretch out and clutch out a win. And right after that, they swept the Nationals. They swept the Nationals, and then obviously the whole Grimace stuff and the whole OMG stuff came from then. Went on from then. And that is exactly who we're going to be playing next. We're going to be playing the Washington Nationals on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's going to be a 4-game series, just like the Yankees, who will be playing a 4-game series against the Blue Jays. You will have Christian Scott, Nolan McLean, and to be determined pitchers. But you're going to be having 2 of your younger guys. And some I actually really didn't talk about him a lot. Honestly, should have, because he was pretty. He was pretty important actually in the series against the Tigers, and especially in that clutch win, because Christian Scott, just to put a little bit of background on him, in his first start ever as an MLB pitcher, he pitched against the Rays, and he was really, really good against the Tampa Bay Rays, and had a great performance against them. 7 innings, 1 run, but then he kind of struggled. Couldn't really get out of the 5th or 6th inning, was giving up. We typically have a tough time going through like the second or third time around the order, and would give up a good amount of runs. So he would typically start off really well and then kind of like dip towards the end. And then he got hurt and missed the rest of 2024 and all of 2025. So he's kind of coming back from the injury, but he kind of was like Nolan McLean before Nolan McLean, if that makes sense. Like he was kind of like one of those pitching prospects, or like the pitching prospect that the Mets were going to break and kind of hopefully build up to be like their next ace. Nolan McLean's definitely overshadowed him because of this last year, but Christian Scott was somebody that the Mets were really looking to build up, and he's kind of trying to build that, build what he was building his rookie year. So I'm looking forward to see how Christian Scott develops more. He definitely has some pretty raw talent. And he's shown that raw talent against the Tigers. So I'm hoping he can slowly get back on track to what we saw in that first start against the Rays. Because if you want to look back again in that first start, he was Jacob deGrom-esque. So he'll be pitch off against Jake Irvin, and obviously you'll have Noel McLean. So we'll get into those series. Definitely one of our longer episodes. There was a lot to talk about. From the first game to the train's not even working. So like this city doesn't even want these train stations don't even want to want you to watch the New York Mets. And then they end up surprising, I think, a majority of this fan base, because I feel like the expectation was that the Yankees were probably going to take at least 2 out of 3. So, but if there's anything else you want to say for Ryan, or else we can definitely wrap it up.
No, not much. I do just want to mention, for the Yankees to get back on track, the bottom of the order has to pick it up a lot. Of course, there's, we've mentioned the injuries, but, guys like Ryan McMahon, he was hot for a week, and he's just completely lost it again. Austin Wells has been, I don't like talking bad about the players because, I know how tough it is, but, like, it's been brutal to watch Austin Wells at bats this year. I mean, I think it was twice this series he came up in a big spot and just immediately swung first pitch and ended the inning, or at least made an out and it wasn't a productive out in big spots. So it's rough to watch, but hopefully the bottom of the order can pick it up and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some positives to look at this series. Obviously, you win the first game. They pretty much had full control of that game from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Rice hit a home run today. He's impressed me. I feel like out of a lot of the Yankees, if there's someone that really stands out, it's been him. He's been just a really consistent hitter these first 2 months of the year. And Volpe and Jazz had pretty good series as well. So yeah.
I want to mention, you brought up Ben Rice, reminded me. I saw a stat earlier today from Sarah Langs on Twitter. The Yankees duos with 15-plus home runs each in the team's first 47 games. In 1956, you had Yogi Berra and Mickey Mantle. 1961, you had Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. And then in 2026, you have Aaron Judge or Ben Rice. So I think that's just an insane stat. It's a crazy way to look at it. And yeah, I mean, the two of them, Judge and Rice, it's going to be fun to watch throughout the year. In the beginning of the year, it looked like they were going to be the two front runners for American League MVP. Of course, I was only like half of a month, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to keep watching those guys hit. It reminds me a lot of when there was a different left-handed 22 for the Yankees not that long ago.
Yeah, you guys had the greatest closer in history, and you guys have not been able to replace him since. And I saw a Yankee fan tweet that, and it's very true. There was someone made a whole video called Replacing Mariano, and it was a really good video talking about every single closer the Yankees have had since Mariano Rivera. And it's not even like they've had bad closers. Like, these guys were solid, like pitchers, like David Robertson, for example. You had, I'm trying to think, there was somebody, Andrew Miller. Do you remember Andrew Miller was the closer for a while?
Mm-hmm.
They had, obviously you had, Chapman was Chapman, but then had Clay Holmes was really good for a while. And then, and then Weaver had his moment in 2024.
Yeah. Before when I was mentioning Bednar, like, I'm not really worried about him. He hasn't been as lights out as he was last year, but I watched the Yankees have Aroldis Chapman and then Clay Holmes and then Devin Williams as our closers. Those were not fun times. It was always nail biting every time they were in the game. I don't think we're at that point yet with Bednar, but hopefully he doesn't get that bad, because I don't know if I can do that again. Watch another great closer come here, or as in Clay Holmes' case, become a great closer and then just completely fall apart.
Yeah, I think the tweet was like, I got to watch the greatest closer in MLB history, and in return, I now have to watch the Yankees fail to replace him, which has been the truth. So
yeah,
in closing, Build a statue of Tyrone Taylor. Build it. So that should do it for our episode of Shadow of the Apple. Great episode. Next series, well, we will be going back to the regular format with the New York Mets taking on the Washington Nationals and the New York Yankees taking on the Blue Jays. Ryan, great time talking about this series. Great time talking about the Subway Series. We've gone down the list. We've mentioned a lot of great Subway Series moments that have happened. More really for the Mets, but it's always great to talk about Mets and Yankees in the Subway Series because it's always fun. Battle of New York City. It's always going to be fun to poke at your friends, banter, and just stuff like that. I always have a great time when the Subway Series comes around.
Yeah, I feel like this series, if you take away the ending of today's game and just look at before that, it felt like it wasn't. I feel like it wasn't as exciting as past Subway Series have been. I feel like it wasn't that much like hype going into it, and as the series went on, it just felt like it wasn't that special. It kind of just felt like, oh, these two teams are from the same city. There was nothing. I felt like there wasn't much in between it. But after today, of course, it picked up.
Well, I think it's two reasons. Because one, the Mets haven't been good.
Of course, yeah. But I mean, it still felt that way.
I think it also goes to the fact that I feel like the Met-Yankee rivalry has become less and less like of a quote-unquote rivalry because, I mean, if you think about it, the two teams play in different leagues, They're on two different sides of the MLB, The only really common similarity is that they both play in New York. So, and you can agree, you'll agree with me too. Like, I don't really see the Yankees as like rivals, I would consider the Braves to be more rivals.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that. Like, there's a difference between divisional rival and like a city rival, and then an actual rival. Like, I don't. It's fun. It's it's something to talk about, but I don't think there's no hatred there. It's just playing the same city.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily have a reason to necessarily hate the Yankees. Like, it's just funny when they lose. And it's funny when the Mets beat them. Because, like, especially this Mets team, because I really don't think this Mets team had any right beating this Yankees team. But hey, man, it's baseball. So, but I think that should do it. Once again, this is Shadow of the Apple. Let's go Mets. Let's go Knicks. Conference final starts on
Yankees.
And of course, yep. Ryan, you could say it one more time.
Let's go Yankees, of course.
So yeah, that will do it. Hope you guys had a great watch. Subway Series in the books, and the next time we will have this series will be in September. So a lot can change. So once again, this is Dylan. This is Ryan signing off. Thank you.
Appreciate it.